I don't know. It's hard to come up with intros for these things. Just walking into camera. I don't know. I tried it out. How did it feel walking into camera? A little hacky. I feel like everyone does that. I'm pretty tired and I decided, hey, why not make a build guide out of nowhere? There's going to be a little bit of a lower effort video. And you know what? I don't care. Anyway, we're going to skip past all this. I'm probably going to cut everything I just said. And we are going to go over how to make minions work. And this may be a bug. So, you know, when Blizzard patches it in like a few weeks, this will be obsolete. But right now, Bone Prison is the name of the game. As you can see in some of the gameplay that's going on, I'm able to go 20 levels above in Nightmare Dungeons right now. I'm only 74. It's good enough, but I can go and do tier 45s, tier 40 to 45, depending on, you know, the Nightmare Dungeon affixes. But it's really good. If I do something like 3 or 5 levels above me, it's actually too easy. It's so easy that it's kind of boring. So I try to go like at least 10 levels above me, maybe 15, just to have some fun. But this build with Bone Prison and Lucky Hit and Ring of Mendelum is amazing. And it's the best way to get minions to work right now. And that ring is here, Ring of Mendeln. And this is what you'll need. The only real piece of gear that you'll need to start this, and it's, you know, it could be RNG to get it. Let's go over the build really slowly. Quickly, let's go over quickly. The first basic skill, we're not using any basic skill, so you can really just pick 2 nodes of whichever one you want. We're gonna come down here, and I took Blight all the way over to Supernatural Blight for the 15% times multiplicative damage on your minions. Then I put into Blood Mist. Blood Mist is on the build so that I just have a way to build corpses up if I die, or it's also a really good escape route. You know, if you get, since you become unstoppable with Blood Mist, you can use it when you get frozen or something. Corpse Explosion, it's one of our key damage abilities if our minions can't do the job, and I'll go over why minions sometimes can't do the job. Bone Prison. I only have 1 rank in Bone Prison. This is all coming from gear, the 5 skills here. You don't have to. You can pick which one you want if you really want Fortify, but just having more vulnerability on the build is just helpful. Grim Harvest and Fueled by Death, I could potentially go more into Fueled by Death, but you don't need to. Skeletal Warrior Mastery, max that out. Death's Embrace, you want maxed on that because you want your minions to be taking less damage. This is really for the minions taking less damage. Not as much the minions doing more damage when close. The reason for that is the Ring of Mendeln goes off of your damage, not your minions' damage. So you being close, if you were close, you would get this bonus. If you're doing hard content, you really aren't going to be that close to the enemies. So it's not going to proc too much. But your minions do get the being close takes less damage, and you want them to take less damage. 3 of 3 on amplified damage for curses. Decrepify all the way over to here. This is kind of basic here. Like everyone should have Decrepify and Abhorrent Decrepify for the cooldown reduction. Then you're doing a minion build, you need to put into your minions. So Age Mastery. 1 point in Corpse Tendrils. You can upgrade this if you want, but you're getting so much cooldown reduction with this build that like you really don't need to. It's always ready. And this is an option if you want. You can do Vulnerability, or you can do the Corpse Tendril Blood Orb. The Blood Orbs, it creates so many Blood Orbs. It's crazy. So if you really wanted to go into Blood Orbs, you could do something here where you go into Transfusion, where your minions heal. But it really depends on if you have enough minion health in your gear. I have so much minion health in my gear that I really don't need the Transfusion. Doing 2 or 3 in Reaper's Pursuit, 1 in the Stun chance, and 3 in Gloom, 3 in Terror. This is just good for your damage because even though we're not doing any specific dark skills, we get darkness from Corpse Explosion, doing the Blighted Corpse Explosion, and we get it from Blight. We're not even setting Blight to our hotbar. Only reason we're putting in the Blight is that we're getting damage on Blight on the Bone Prison. All the way down here, I'm putting into these skills here. Hellbent Commander, your minions deal 10% extra damage, 10% times damage when you're close to them. I'm not really close to them, but this could be helpful. It really depends on what you're playing. This is really good if you want your minions to do damage, but again, we're using Ring of Mendeln, so it's not our minions damage. So we really don't care too much about our minions damage. We care about Inspiring Leader because they get attack speed. It can be helpful in general. And death defense, your minions can't lose more than like 30% of their hit points. It's really, this is like the most important one because your minions will at least survive 4 hits. Every 5 seconds, you can heal them with a Skeletal Priest. You may or may not need this. I would alternate between either this one, like Skeletal Priest, or the Transfusion. Some way to heal your minions is helpful though. And then we're going down here to Shadow Blight. I do not like Kalan's Edict. It just never goes off. You're never really able to get a good use of it, even with the buff to it. So we're using Shadow Blight, and we have a lot of Shadow Blight stuff in our gear. And for this section here, if you don't have a lot of the Shadow Blight ability in your gear, you could go somewhere else, because again, the key ability here is the Ring of Mendeln, and so we're putting a lot into our gear, into ourselves. So we're buffing our Necromancer's skills and abilities over our minions. So Book of the Dead, it's gonna be Reapers. As always, everyone uses Reapers with the to be able to get a corpse. You want more corpses. Mages, Cold. They can also make vulnerability. I just like having everything be able to make things vulnerable. The more vulnerability, it's just a nice damage bucket that you can get, and you don't always have to rely on Ring of Mendeln proccing, because you can sometimes just get your minions to do some work for you. Golem, this is going to be, you could actually use your Golem with this build, but I really like the 30% critical damage. This is a second critical damage multiplier. This doesn't just add to your total crit damage. It's crit damage times 30% of your crit damage when you crit. This is how I'm able to hit 900k, 600k, 400k. If you put your Golem on, you're still going to be fine. You will be safer with the Golem. For a build with the Golem, check out Krip's channel. You can see, like, I wanted to be more active with my abilities. So he's got a guide on using the Golem, and you can probably push a little bit safer, push higher tiers a little bit safer with his build, but you're not going to be hitting as many critical hits. Like, I just want to see big numbers. I just like big numbers. And so this is a more active build. Let's go over the gear real quick. It is, and these can be interchangeable, like the slots that you have, but this is probably the best-ish setup. So I have on my head and my boots, I have increased the amount of minions I got. So Skeletal Warriors on my head, Skeletal Mages on my boots. They're interchangeable, whichever one you want. Going down to the body, everyone's going to be using this. You should always be using this. Disobedience, it stacks your armor. We're going to be damage over timing. We're going to be doing lots of damage over time, and minions are going to be stacking up to that. So this is the best way to get your damage, your defense up. Your minions, I believe, get a bit of your armor, so that's good. You can also get maximum minion life on this. As you can see, I have a really good number, 47%. I have, I think, 300% minion health on my build here. Hands is a little iffy. Ideally for this build, there's a unique, but it's the one where the skeletons get up when you corpse explode and they run to your target, which would be amazing if it works with everything I have going on. Having the skeletons, like the corpse explosions, rise up and track a target, I think would be better than what I'm doing now, which I'm just exploding corpses into smoke. But for now, I have, and this is actually really good, I was surprised by this, the Cold Skeletal Mages cast Blizzard. This goes off so often and just CCs, freezes, like a whole doorway will just get CC'd, Blizzard, frozen, and does a ton of damage. You have 5 of these, so you're doing 10k damage, and it's just a Blizzard spot. It's not like a single hit. It's really good. So I like this. I tried out Blood Mists causes corpse explosions. Didn't like it. I didn't like it because the Butcher showed up, and I didn't have any corpses, and I couldn't make corpses because when I used Blood Mist, it exploded my corpses. So I had no way to get minions. Blood Mist is really good for a corpse builder when you don't have any corpses around, or you die, or you mess up, or something goes wrong. So having them explode automatically wasn't good. And there's not much you can put on your hands. The only other option would be the when you're injured while crowd controlled, you become unstoppable. But in my experience, if you're injured and crowd controlled, you're dead. There are not a lot of times where I get injured. I usually get one shot. So on the pants, we have damaging an elite gives you a barrier. I like this because your minions get your barrier too, and it's helpful for you. I had to do something. I needed a barrier in some way. All right, for the weapon, we are using a 2-handed weapon. So a lot of these builds, a lot of the minion builds are using 1-handed weapons. I'm here to maximize my damage and get the biggest number possible. So your minions don't really get too much of your attack speed. They get like 30% of your attack speed. So using a one-handed weapon isn't as good because they really get that base damage number. So this base damage number is what translates to them. So when they're doing their regular damage, I want them to be okay. So I'm using a two-handed weapon, plus great swords can have 2 crit stats on it, crit damage. I don't have 2 crit stat damage on it yet, but I am rolling it. It's expensive. So you have the first stat, 52% critical strike damage. You can get another one down here for another 40 to 50% critical strike damage. That's what I'm going for. Don't have it yet. Going up to the amulet. This is the legendary you want on it. 180% times increased damage for 6 seconds after Shadow Blight key passive damages enemies 10 times. In a bigger fight, this goes off and the damage goes insane. Smaller fights, you're not going to stack the key passive 10 times, but in a larger fight, more enemies or a boss fight, this goes off. You're fighting the butcher. Amazing. The other key to this build is this ability here. Bone Prison spawns a pool of blight. Doesn't really matter that it's 100%. If you get a lower roll on it, it's okay. A key element to the build is that you have Bone Prison spawning with a pool of blight. One, it saves you an ability slot so you don't have to use blight. It's stacking the darkness damage, and then it's also stacking Shadow Blight, and it's getting all of our things working together. The last up is Ring of Mendeln, and that is if you have 7 or more minions on a lucky hit, there's a 10% chance to pop 15k on each of them. Now that 15,000 damage is coming from you, not your minions. So all of your critical chance, your critical damage, all of your stats go off of that. Usually when you're doing your minion damage, your minions are doing a portion of your stats. They get some of your full stats, they get some of your partial stats. Some of their stuff is 30%, some of it is 100%, or various numbers in between. What this build is built around is I'm buffing up my Necromancer's abilities and then using this one ability for the stats on the gear. Really want cooldown reduction on the helmet. Maximum life is helpful. I'm not sure if you can get minion life on there. You can get minion life on the body, and that is really key. Damage reduction and maximum minion life, super helpful on the body. On the hands, lucky hit chance, and you can get a rank. You can get ranks of something that's really good for you. So I have ranks of blight. So I only have 1 point in blight, but I have 4 ranks of blight going into that. Really helpful. A lot more damage just over time. For the legs, another defensive piece. You can get maximum life on here. I have 4 ranks of Bone Prison. I don't really need that either, but it kind of helps with the build. I have 4 ranks of Corpse Explosion, and that is super helpful because it just saves me points. I don't have to put too many points into Corpse Explosion if I don't need to. I did dump all the rest of my points into Corpse Explosion anyway, so I have 7 in there. Life regeneration I don't care about. You can get max health on here, which I would prefer, or you can get damage resist, which I would also prefer. And then 45% maximum minion life. Again, my minion life is through the roof on this build. Boots, I would like to have 3 charges of dash, but there's other ways to go with this. Corpse Tendril, I don't care about. Dodge chance, though, is super good for minion builds because your minions get your dodge chance, and dodging damage is pretty good. Just straight up dodging damage is good. And then movement speed. I would love movement speed. Your boots, you can get movement speed. You get movement speed after killing an elite, and you can get movement speed after dashing. You can make your boots like really good for moving. So I would go with those if you can, but I'm still praying and hoping and wishing. For the Great Sword, you can go with Scythe if you really want, but the Scythe default skill is like life on kill. I don't care about that. So critical strike chance. You want another critical strike chance, and then this is where you want all of your damage passes if you can get them. So damage to slow, damage to crowd control, vulnerable damage, like really just kind of pick and choose what you can get on that, and then roll off the worst one. Also, your main stat, if you can get that on there, is really good. I have 186 intelligence on that. Like, that's a really good damage bump. And again, I'm using the Corpse Tendril imprint on there. If you wanted, you could swap that over to your amulet and use this one if you're using more shadow damage. I'm not using as much shadow damage. I'd rather the crit chance. I just really want the big numbers. On my amulet, you can get ranks of your passives on here. So I have 1 rank of Hellbent Commander. I would prefer that somewhere else, but I just don't have it yet. 7% damage, that's good. Summoning skill damage, that's pretty good for your minions because it's directly correlating to your minion damage. But again, we're going off our own damage, so you know we don't really care too much about that. We just want them to survive long enough to do the big bops. For my rings, critical strike chance, critical strike damage. Those are the two that you want because it's on your ability. Maximum minion life, super good. Lucky hit chance, super good. So the only thing that isn't good on this ring right here is fortified generation. I don't really care about it. If I could, I would have critical strike damage there, and this would be a perfect ring. Down here, this is just going to get these stats. It's a unique, that's just what's going to happen, but it's good. It's got maximum minion life and it's got minion attack speed, also good. Lucky hit chance, super good. Thorns, don't care. I'll go over this real quick so you can just like look at it and take a picture or whatever you need to do. First board is Glyph Socket Exploit. That's a good one just for vulnerability damage and for that secondary passive. It's also really easy to get everything going on this first page, so that's why I like to put it here. So follow through all of this. The second page is Cult Leader. So we're going up through here. I'm following along to this, and then I'm putting in Dead Razor. Now, the reason I put in Dead Razor, I'm following Krip's guide here, and what it's doing is it's buffing the minion nodes in this area. And really what's key about this is you're getting more damage reduction, so your minions are staying alive longer. You just need them to stay alive so that they can have more than 7 alive to proc the ring. That's really when you get in trouble in this build, is when you have less than 7 and they're not able to proc the ring. Follow this through here, go up to Cult Leader and up to here for Skeletal Mages because they tend to be alive a little bit longer because they're not on the front line. And Cult Leader, you could be getting more bonus from this if you had your Golem, but right now this is good enough. The next board that I'm using is Scent of Death. And that's because there's always corpses around with this build. I'm constantly either, if you don't have corpses or if you do have corpses, you're getting something out of this. So if you have 15% damage reduction, if you have 2 corpses nearby, pretty easy to get with Reapers. And then if you don't have any corpses, if you're all alone, when you're starting the fight, really. And also, I don't know how this works, but I'm assuming that if you won't have the corpses near you, so you're proccing Ring of Mendeln. You won't be near the corpses, your minions will. So you're proccing it away from your minions, so you're getting the 15x bonus damage. And then on here, I'm using control because everything is crowd controlled. You're using your curse to slow, so everything should be slowed. Then you're using your tendrils. The tendrils have a stun to them. If they're chilled, they're always chilled, and sometimes frozen. They're not often frozen. The freeze doesn't go off too often. Everything's always CC'd. Part of the problem with this build is like, I can't even break these crates. Like, there's nothing I can do. So I'm really a Necromancer with my minions here. Can't really fight for myself at all, but that's why I have the Blood Mist, so that if I'm ever by myself, Blood Mist, I get 3 minions, and then they can start making corpses for me. So the general playstyle is that I will go in, find a group of monsters, and I will hit them with that. My minions will follow. They won't do a lot of damage, but then I put the Bone Prison down and it dies immediately. Every time. Bone Prison here is triggering Lucky Hit, and it's potentially a glitch, a bug, I'm not sure, but it's been going on for a while. So after this last patch, I decided, you know what, I'm going to use it because they didn't take it away. So maybe it's intentional, but on Bone Prison, there isn't a Lucky Hit chance. Like, there's no Lucky Hit chance on Bone Prison because Bone Prison doesn't do any damage, but Blight does. And Blight has a 53% Lucky Hit chance. So I'm assuming that the Lucky Hit of Blight is going off. I will usually go in and then I will float in to put some minions down, to put some corpses down. Then I Corpse Tendril, and then I Bone Prison. And then everything should be, killed there. They didn't trigger on that guy because they were too busy killing those other enemies. But yeah, Blood Mist, Corpse Tendril, and that. Whenever you use Bone Prison, you just have to hit any enemy. It has to hit an enemy. Once you hit an enemy, it procs Lucky Hit on you, and then all of your minions will then go out and do their big hit. That hit can crit based on your crit chance and other factors, which is why I want to use the tendrils first, and then I do Bone Prison, and then everything lands. The other reason that I'm using a two-handed weapon is because I want the maximum amount of crit chance and crit damage from the corpse tendril aspect. So this is why. And you can see I get a 40% additional crit strike chance when I do that. And then 120 additional crit damage. So this is how I'm hitting these like crazy numbers, is using the highest ability for corpse tendrils that I can possibly use. And then, I mean, they can do stuff on their own too, which is a good side of this build. But without a minion, without a corpse, you need a corpse, and you pull that in, pop it, and then everything dies. So it's a little bit of setup. But if you notice, I'm not corpse exploding. I don't need to use corpse explosions. And the only thing I need corpse explosions for is things that are tougher, and mainly suppressor. And the reason is that suppressor elites don't get the Ring of Mendeln. You cannot proc the Ring of Mendeln on suppressor minion or suppressor elites, and I don't know why. Just another bug, you know? But you can start popping off your see, like this is too easy. This one is too easy, and I'm level 74 on tier 36. And it is too easy to even need to use corpse explosion. Like, it's just not, it's not a factor. Corpse explosion, super good, but by the time I use corpse explosion, everything's dead anyway. You know, like, they're all dead right there. Like, I didn't need to even use anything. They're all gonna die. And then I can, you know, with this build, there's multiple ways for me to trigger the Ring of Mendeln. One is corpse explosion. That's a guarantee proc, pretty much. And the other is with the corpse tendril. Corpse tendril has a really good lucky hit chance. And it seems like that is like a pretty good chance. It's not guaranteed, but it is a really high chance to proc lucky hit. So I'll do it right here and see if it goes off. But no, there you go. Like, you see, as soon as I did Bone Prison, like, the things did all their damage. It was great. But now they're all dead. So that's a downside. That's a very big downside. So let's summon all more minions. Thank you. All right, cool. I wasn't paying attention. So there we go. Everything's back up. I had less than 7 minions, so I was in trouble, but I'm good now. Put a little corpse explosion there. Put the bone prison, and then everything's dead. And they all did like 500,000. Like, it's not the hugest number. It's 500,000. They just don't have enough hit points to see it go off again. like it's insane how little I have to do with the rest of my abilities, which is why I honestly feel like you could mold this build to whatever you're really into. The other key of the build, lucky hit chance. You want to get that as high as possible, because if they ever take away Bone Prison being able to do what it's doing, this build will still work. If Bone Prison stops working, I will take away the two-hander and I will go one-hander and a focus. And the reason for that is the one-hander sword still gets critical strike damage. It's not as much, but over here, this focus, as you can see, I have 2 procs of lucky hit. And if I really wanted to bump that up, you can use a wand, which gets lucky hit chance. As you can see at the top here, they get a default lucky hit chance. So ideally, I would use a wand and a lucky hit, double lucky hit proccing ability here. I think that's it. I don't think I have anything else to say about this build. It's super fun, kicks ass. I don't want to say kicks ass, do I? I don't know. It does really good. This build does really good damage. The only thing that it struggles with a little bit is survivability. But if you're doing 10 to 20 above you, it has no problems. It's fine. If you're trying to push extremely hard nightmares, like, you know, 70, 80, 90 tiers, you might have trouble. Might have some trouble. And in that case, I mean, I think everyone's going to have a little bit of trouble there. I also don't think this will kill Uber Lilith, because the minions don't know how to do mechanics. But otherwise, for like general gameplay, This is super easy to build. You get you get this ring and you get the blight on Bone Prison and you're good. The build works like that. You just have to use those 2 items and then you have this freedom to just do whatever you want with the build. This is how I built mine, but you don't need to use all these abilities. Want to use something else? Go ahead. Doesn't matter. This build is awesome. Minions. Who knew? Super good. But that's it. Have fun. Enjoy the minions working for now. And we stream on Twitch and YouTube. So maybe check us out. Maybe not. I don't know what. It's your life. You live it. See ya.